conversation, and I really want to focus on the intrapersonal aspects of identity. Because we can't talk about the identities that we hold. How are we going to start working with others to talk about the identities that they hold? And I've been making this joke a few times. I could do, and I have done, like an entire 12-hour training just on identity development and systems of oppression and inclusion and inclusive efforts and inclusive excellence and social justice, and that's sort of one of my favorite things to talk about. But we only have about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half to talk about it today. So that's what we're going to focus on, sort of that intrapersonal identity development. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. When we start talking about this, we're going to talk about definitions and the self-experience. So that outline, there's a lot of stuff there, a lot for you to develop and to work on throughout the year whenever you want some additional professional development opportunities. But we really are going to focus on definitions and the self-experience. Talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about intersection of identities. I don't know if folks have heard that term before. So we're going to go from there. And so I'm just going to rip this Band-Aid right off. Woo. And you're going to see things that I like to call social identities on the board here. There are two types of identities I like to talk about: personal identities and social identities. Your personal identities are things that make you you, but don't have a historic sense of othering or of an us versus them. So like, those who like the color blue, there's not a privilege associated with liking the color blue versus the color green. I mean, if you want to get into the fact that green is made of blue and yellow, sometimes people give me that argument. But like, it's, when it comes down to that, like, these are things that make us who we are, but don't necessarily have a greater societal or socially constructed impact. Our social identities, however, are these big 8-ish that are up here that have some stigma associated with them. And it doesn't do us any good if we don't have definitions of what these are. But like most things in this training, I don't want to give you the definition. I want this to come from the group. I want to see where the group is at. So like I said, we're ripping off the Band-Aid. Someone tell me, what is the definition of race? And yes, it is a track and field event. Someone always says that, so yes, I will concur. It is a track and field event, but in terms of socially constructed identities and identities that we hold, what's race? And I will also put out a disclaimer, I get very sassy and sarcastic here, like as you saw during the last part of Module 5, where I start talking about society in a very sarcastic manner. So I apologize if that impacts someone. It is meant to bring light to the injustices of society. Yes?
Does that keep the color of someone's skin?
Color of someone's skin? Okay, what else?
Like your origin, like I'm Polish,
Okay.
I don't know, I get confused.
See, that's why we're having this conversation, because we kind of have ideas, but we don't at the same time. Okay.
Aren't they kind of linked together in a way?
Are they kind of linked in together?
The surveys are like race / stuff like that. Like if you're white, you check white, and if you're like Hispanic or like Latino or whatever that is, you check that box, and it's like stuff like that. Like it's like they're linked together mostly, aren't they?
So I will answer maybe, or you can answer maybe.
Isn't it like you could choose what you want to like be almost? Like you could, like what you, what's the word?
Identify.
Yeah, what you identify yourself as.
Okay, so we've talked about identifying with specific races or ethnicities. Okay.
So like, going back to that, like on, like for College Board, like a bunch of stuff like that, like when it asks you, like check if you're white or Caucasian or Hispanic or what. Like usually I will check, like I'm half Puerto Rican, like you obviously cannot tell that, like I don't look Puerto Rican, I don't look Spanish in any, sort of way, so if someone was to see
Well,
me.
Spanish would be Spain.
Huh? I'm Puerto Rican.
Sorry,
I'm,
this is me being sarcastic.
Oh,
You said I don't like
man.
Spanish, I'm like, well, but that's from
Oh,
Spain.
you're like my comm professor.
Is that a good thing or a bad
That's
thing?
a bad thing.
Oh no! Oh no!
But like if someone's to see me, they're gonna say that I'm white. So
we make judgments about people based on what we can see about them.
Ooh, let me add to that. When I went to University of Pittsburgh many, many years ago, and you had to actually like type out your application.
I didn't see
My
it.
box wasn't complete, or my X wasn't completely in the box that said Caucasian, so my guidance counselor at school actually got a phone call to see if I was black so that I could fill the black quota because my name was Kiara.
Oh.
That's before you guys were born.
Someone told me that
so-
I had to check the other box.
You had to check the other box. Huh.
Yeah. Irish background, but my family, or my grandfather's family is from the part of Spain that, like, that invaded Ireland, and so they have some of that, like, what did I say, like Toledo,
Spain.
no, what's the,
The Basque.
there's a particular part that invaded Spain.
Castellano? Oh,
Like, I forget what
Catalan?
part that, like
Catalan.
Alhambra, anyway, there's this part with like people with
It's
olive
Vikings
skin
too,
tones,
and-
Mediterranean olive skin tones that like invaded Spain and then they went to Ireland and that's how I got olive skin tone. And so yeah, they were convinced that there was no way I could have been Caucasian and that I was not allowed to check the white box, that I had to check the other box.
So we're talking a lot about boxes. Huh.
Box is not our identity.
Boxes. So we're saying that most of the way that we're identifying with race and ethnicity is because of boxes and surveys and the government.
It's the way we were told we have to identify.
Brady, you're told the identity. It really comes, and you know, I was a sociology major, loved it, but you know, there is some detriment to the fact that we want to know about people. And how do we know about people but doing SPSS data analysis on people, and how do we get a large enough N to make grand overarching assumptions about people, but then putting them in boxes? Yeah.
This is kind of goes off like what Kiara was saying. Like there's actually, it's just a little bit similar, but there was an episode of The Middle when Sue was applying to go to college, and she checked the American box or the like American Indian. Yeah.
Native
Because
American.
she just assumed that she was American, and she got all these like flyers and stuff about like their different groups they had, and she like they thought she was American Indian and all this stuff, and because she checked the wrong box. So I guess it's like the way they do it on like college applications. I'm thinking is that like they just want to do it to like try and put an interest for you.
Yeah.
But like still don't get like why would they have? Never mind.
No,
I don't know what
ask
I'm trying to-
questions. It's one of the ground rules.
I don't know what I'm like trying to say. Like I guess
Okay.
like, you know how like are you not supposed to judge people off of like this stuff? Like why would they like make specific groups for it?
What do you mean? So, I mean, there are affinity groups on campuses because we do know through social science research and from higher education research that individuals who are able to meet and work and grow and live with folks who have similar shared experiences and identities with them tend to persist and retain more often. So a lot of campuses, a lot of campus groups exist. I mean, you are at a Catholic institution right now. You probably have maybe, I don't know, I'm going to make an assumption, Knights of Columbus. Do you have a Knights of Columbus? No, you don't. All right, well, I'm glad to not make that assumption. Do you have a Catholic Students Association? No?
Campus
Muslim Students
Ministry.
Association? Do you not have?
Campus
We
Ministry.
just developed a multicultural club, like
Just
that
it,
just
okay.
started.
Huh.
And it was
Interesting.
originally, it was like black, like it was black.
Black
something.
Student Union.
Black
Yeah.
Student Union? Okay.
is-
Or is that sort of the extent of your affinity groups that you have on campus?
We've had a Gay Straight Alliance in the
Okay.
past. It's just not active right now.
Okay. GSA.
And we have InterVarsity.
Okay. InterVarsity, interfaith sort of pieces. Okay. There are, and every campus is sort of different. There are a lot of campuses where they do have sort of these affinity groups for specific identities, for folks who have those shared identities, for them to come together and talk about what that experience is. Because as we get further down the list, we'll see that there are identities that have common traditions and common cultures and common beliefs. And I know we've sort of strayed away from this race and ethnicity conversation, but the way that we have defined race is really kind of how you talk about with the color of someone's skin. But the labels that we ask people to pick sometimes aren't all inclusive. Sometimes it's black, white, Asian American, Native American, other. Or should I say African American, Caucasian American, Native American, Asian American? What happens if if you have someone who's from Haiti, darker skin, they don't want to check the African American box necessarily. They
Or
are
you have
American.
someone, you are from a multiracial family and one of your parents is African American or black and the other one is Caucasian.
There are two different identities. So maybe you have very light skin, and someone might not tell that you have X identity. Yeah.
I had a patient once, it was early on in my practice, so I didn't make the mistake again. But I had made the comment about him being African American, and he was from Trinidad, I believe. And he was like, I'm not American, I just happen to live in America, and my ancestry is originally from Africa, but I'm from Trinidad. So he's like, please don't label me that way. Like, I am not African American. And I was thinking, I was trying to be politically correct.
Yeah.
It was about, I think we were talking about health risks with different races, or I don't remember exactly what the reason that we brought it up, or I brought it up, but it was purely in the auspices of health, and he was like, not me. So I mean, it did definitely. I didn't make those judgments. I asked people what they identify as.
Yes.
They actually just made a joke about that on SNL, which kind of like Drake was the co-host. And as everybody knows, he's African American, but he's also from Canada, and nobody seems to think that black people can come from Canada. So there was like an entire, they did like their Black Jeopardy, where they had like a stereotypical, inner city, whatever, that they portray, that way. Not that I'm saying that I agree with it. I'm like backing myself in the corner.
Open dialogue. Like, if we don't have these conversations, we can't create change and be those empowered leaders to try to create what society is set up for. So don't apologize for impact, but no, that's what we're here for. So I cut you off, which was also one of our rules. So I've cut you off like 4 times now. So whatever. Forgive me. That'll go on the evaluation. I know.
Would you like me to surgically remove the
So they were asking questions that is like popular African American culture, and he kept giving like names of people from Canada, yeah. And he was like, the host of the show was like, what kind of black are you? And he was like, I'm every kind, I am Canadian black. Like, that's what I identify as. He was like, you can't group us together. And even though it was obviously in a funny setting, and it was funny, and it was humorous, and blah, 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 it really did give that message, you can't group all of them together. And I know that Drake's been kind of an advocate for that as well. So it was fun to see in pop culture.
We make assumptions based on a whole group of people based upon an identity that they have. And that's where I think some of this race and ethnicity kind of, sorry, did you have a comment over here too? No. Okay. When we start talking about race versus ethnicity, or race and ethnicity, I don't necessarily want to call them dichotomous. Your race tends to be sort of that color of the skin, the amount of melanin that's in your skin, the way that society has treated you and your ancestors and that history. With race and with ethnicity, however, being sort of those origins, those cultural beliefs, and what comes with the culture. So maybe it is Irish American, or sorry, you descend from Ireland, or where did you say? Poland? Okay, I was somewhere in Europe, I can't remember which country you had said. Or, what are sort of the Polish traditions that get assigned to us? And, those are sort of the subsets of that white Caucasian race, but then for the African race, we kind of just make assumptions in an Americanized sense of what it means to be black. Okay? So, yeah.
I know this is probably jumping all over the place,
No.
but going, this kind of leads back to, the whole, acceptable social norms, so I know that, looking at stereotypes, there's one on, it's a definition on the page.
Everyone should star the definition of a stereotype, by the way.
And
It may or may not be the only question for Module 6 on the exam.
I was just gonna say, as peer educators, we have to kind of strip away that social identity that we would create for somebody in order to kind of help them. Because we can't just assume who they are by what they look like.
Yeah.
Because you're saying all of those are social and we can see. So we kind of have to strip them away and not listen to the stereotypes and actually hear them.
Yeah,
Them where they are.
So meeting the student where they're at and stripping away the stereotypes. And I want to just make sure that we are stripping away their stereotypes
Yeah.
rather than stripping away their identity. Because it's easy for us and it comes most from for most of us, it comes from a good place where we say, oh, I don't see color, or I don't see race. That's not respecting the experience that they had. So that's not a good thing for us to say either. To say, well, I don't see color. Everyone, we're all part of the human race. I get that, but we also should know that our identities have led to our experiences and have made us who we are. So if we strip away those, and I know you did say strip away
That's
those
not,
identities,
yeah, I
but
meant like, don't let them be what is guiding your judgment.
right.
Like, just because I'm white doesn't mean one, like, doesn't really, I mean, yes, it's the color of my skin, but it doesn't make, like, I mean, it is a part of me, but it doesn't make me who I am completely, so you have to kind of look at the full picture, not just one aspect of it.
And we're gonna go there. Do you have your hand somewhere over here?
I was just like, race isn't necessarily visual most of the time. Like, my boyfriend and I, like, obviously our skin color does not say white, but when you talk to someone over the phone and we're going to meet up with them, they're like, oh my god, I thought you were white, just for the way you talk. So I'm like, I don't think race, like the way everyone defines race is just visual.
Yeah, because there are some of those, again, stereotypes, but then also traditions and traits that we correlate with some of these identities. Yeah.
Back to like what Dr. Ray was saying about how like what she has to check and she has to check other. I had a friend in high school and he was like he was light skinned. He looked like he was white, and when you would see like his family, they were all darker, and it was weird because if somebody never had told me that he was African American, I wouldn't have known. And it's just like it's weird because like thinking about like what would he check if like on a box like for a college application, would he, because he looks white, would he choose white or would he choose other or something else? I've never thought about that until we were talking about that.
I have a question there, and then we'll jump in the back.
It's not so much a question, it's more just
Or statement or
general
comment or,
statement.
yeah.
Just because like these stories of like race being non-visual sort of got me thinking about that. I think it was a few years ago, it was a more public thing in the news. Senator Elizabeth Warren, apparently she has traces of Native American, like some sort of Native American
Ancestry?
Yeah, ancestry, specific group. Yeah, but no, like she has some Native American ancestry in her blood, but then in a debate with someone else that was running for Senate, she was like, obviously she can't be Native American because she doesn't look like it. And so, like...
And recently Donald Trump has said something about her Native American heritage as well.
Has he?
Yes. I'm not bringing politics into this discussion because we're already going deep enough as it is. That would be part of these population subgroups. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I wanted to sort of highlight, because I think it was something that shifted in my mind when I kind of thought about this idea of not seeing color, or like I don't see your ethnic heritage, or I don't see your race, and that is the fact that I've had a number of male colleagues that are like, well, I mean, I don't want, like, it's I don't think you should say that you have a different experience because you're a female professor. Like, I think you're limiting yourself, or you're like putting yourself down. And then I'm like, but I do, right? Like I think that for me was a nice thing to be able to be able to say, but yes, it is different, right? There are things that happen to me as a female professor that you don't experience. And so, like, dismissing that is just frustrating because you're not understanding me. You're not seeing me for who I am. And that was really a huge shift for me to say, like, okay, so yeah, you can't be like, oh, I treat everybody the same,
Right.
because that's not fair.
Well, and that comment of coming from your male colleagues, and for individuals who maybe are white and say, oh, I don't see color, that tends to be the response that we get. It's folks who sort of have that dominant or that historically, it's a charged word, that historically privileged identity, say that about a historically disenfranchised identity. So that comes from a perspective of privilege almost, to say, oh, I don't see X, Y, or Z identity. I think that we're all the same. Because they haven't had to experience struggles that might come with holding that identity that you talk about. And everyone has different struggles, and maybe some folks have had greater struggles than others. Sometimes when I have these conversations, people are like, well, I've never had or I've never seen X, Y, or Z. That's great if you've never had to experience that. That isn't, bless you, the historical or that, bless you. One more?
That was 3.
Oh, so bless you, one more.
He doesn't want to interrupt you now.
Yeah, I'm being very cautious. And I think part of that is, maybe coming from some of my own male privileges, knowing that I don't want to mansplain, I don't want to interrupt, because I know that in many spaces I walk into, I have power and I can take up space. I mean, granted, I'm the facilitator here, and so that's kind of where this power came from. But this is also a group learning environment, and that's why I'm trying to definitely be mindful of the space that I take up, physically, metaphorically, whatever you want to say. So we're talking about race and ethnicity. When you think about it, it does come down to a lot of those boxes that we put ourselves in. And the way that the census works, when we talk about race, it's the ones that listen. When it comes to ethnicity, this is what I love. I love the way that they define ethnicity. Hispanic Latino, not Hispanic Latino. Those are your options on the census, FYI. Right? Right? But then not every survey has the same options. Come on! Yep, either one. My best assumption is the fact that the Hispanic/Latino population in this country is growing significantly, and they're just trying to see what blood people got.
If I can be a smart aleck, Puerto Ricans come from all races if we go down the tree, so what do you want me to put down now?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't
I know.
put anything down.
Yep. What happens when you see a little asterisk that said question required?
I'm not putting anything down.
You can't advance the
I'm
next
a
screen.
human. That's what I'm gonna put down, Homo sapien. Done.
It's frustrating, especially when we get radio buttons on a survey that won't let us get to the next page, but we need to fill out the survey to get into college, this application, and we have to pick one. And what really does that do for data integrity whenever someone's trying to analyze it? Yeah. So, just something to think about. Like I said, we rip off the Band-Aid very quickly when we say, let's have a definition of race. Ethnicity. All right, third one, religious beliefs. Who's got a definition for religious beliefs? This should be an easy one. Easier, right?
It's your belief or disbelief in a religion or higher divine power.
Okay.
I don't know word any better than that.
Love, that sounds like a textbook to me.
Maybe God, like I don't know.
Okay. Anyone want to add? Flex spaghetti monster, all right. I love what you said was a belief or maybe no belief in sort of a religious or a spiritual being. I think that's a good definition.
Thanks.
I appreciate that we are affirming one another in the group. Oftentimes we do forget the folks who don't believe, or maybe don't have a specific thing that they believe in, but they think that there's something agnostic, atheism, just spiritual in general. Yeah, Jedi.
That's like
Jedi is a
also-
registered religion, apparently. Yeah.
Like not believing in anything, like their belief is like not believing in it.
Right.
It's like they still have a belief, it's just.
Yep. We often forget about those folks. All right, sexual orientation. Yeah.
I would say that I would define like sexual orientation as like how you are attracted to other people sexually.
Okay.
I didn't have like a definition for it, but I was just saying that like people can identify like themselves on like how, I feel like I'm always going back to like the questionnaire thing or the survey or like college applications and stuff.
We don't ask this question on college applications. It's too taboo.
Oh, what, I'm thinking of gender, my bad, I'm looking at the
Oh.
wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
We're-
thinking of like.
We are getting there.
Yeah, so come back to me.
I will come back to you. All right. But we don't even ask sexual orientation on college applications. Cool. Sexual orientation, yeah, kind of who you're having sex with. Different than maybe romantic orientation, who you romantically love. That's going very far deep down in there, but this does tie in a little bit to gender. Alex, correct. All right.
Annie?
That does tie in a little bit to gender identity / expression, and then there's a word that's not up there, and it's sex. And this tends to get muddled, so I'll sort of do my best to explain what I sort of see these as. So sex, that's biology. Your genitalia. Penis, vagina, the whole reproductive system, breasts, testes. No one giggled, so I appreciate that. Someone tends to giggle normally, so I appreciate no giggling. That is sex, what you are born with. Sometimes folks are born with one set of reproductive organs, some are born with another. Some folks, chromosomally, maybe that's a word nowadays, have both. We call that intersex. They might not be fully developed or fully formed, but if they have parts of both, we tend to call those individuals intersex. That's different than gender. Come to you now.
Oh, okay, so.
Tell me to come back.
Yeah, for the gender thing, it like I said earlier, I was thinking like applications and services and stuff, like how you can identify yourself as something, but you can also like have the opportunity to like not identify yourself. Like on the thing, like, and I think you can do it with race and or religious beliefs. Actually, I don't know if it's religious beliefs is like on some of these things, but I know if I'm filling out like an application for like a job, like where I work, I have to always like, since it's like a seasonal job, I have to refill out the application, and there's always like the box that's like I choose not to answer, and there's like also that for if you're a retired veteran or something like that. So like that's always what I would think of as like gender. You're either like male or female, or you choose not to answer.
Right. So, I think there's a problem with that, which I don't know if that was what those hands were about or no.
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you want to talk about that?
Well, because I think that, like you were saying, that sex is different than gender, which
Yeah.
is also, I think, very much what I've learned and like what I've been taught, and also what I believe. Because, like you said, that sex is like your biological characteristics, and so then I would say that gender is like your more social characteristics, and that has a lot more to do with like how you personally identify and like how you. I don't know if, I guess how you choose to identify, like I don't know if that's exactly the right phrase.
Yeah, choose is always a sticky word when it starts coming to identity.
Right,
but
yeah,
like,
I'm not sure that that's the right word I want to use, but like that's how you like personally identify. So like you may.
You know what you are internally regardless if your genitalia matches.
Right, and so like typically I think a lot of times like the terms that are used would be like cisgender or transgender, and so cisgender is like typically like you like socially identify like your gender as like what the characteristics you're biologically born with. So like if you identify like as a woman or a girl, like and your like biological like sex parts like match, but like if you're transgender, then like you may be born with like female parts like sexually like as your sex, but like you would feel differently like inside.
You know that inside you. Yeah, did you want to add to that?
That's
That's exactly what I'm saying. See, I love this whole like group discussion and definitions, so that way we can have great dialogue and then I can take all the credit for it at the end. Yeah, I think that was a really great definition. You hit on a lot of points I wanted to talk about, where sex being the genitalia rather than the gender being what's going on in your brain, what you know in your brain it is. And like you said, if genitalia aligns with what's up here, then we call that cisgender, C-I-S, gender. That's a math term because it has to deal with triangles and sides of triangles. I remember that in...
It's also a chemistry term.
Also a chemistry term. Never got that far in chemistry.
It has to do with the geometry, so we're good.
I'm internalizing the issue once we start talking about math now. And it's chemistry. Okay, and then transgender, when sort of what you know is going on up here is different than what's going on down there, for lack of a better term. There's also a difference between gender expression. And when we think about gender expression, we think about traits that historically have been seen as masculine versus feminine. So we talked about that earlier. I know Dr. Murphy's gone, but she had talked a little bit about that earlier with sort of ways that boys were raised. So boys, who we assume have male genitalia, but then also identify as men, based on their gender, have to act in a certain way which is deemed masculine. So it's almost like layers. Gender reveal parties for babies. You can't actually know what their gender is until they are born and start living in the world. So really those are sex reveal parties. FYI.
But it's also like the only thing that people want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody asks you anything else,
Nope.
but do you know what you're having?
Yep.
Like that's it, not nothing.
Yep. And all it has to, and we symbolize, if we're having a boy, if sex-wise it is a boy, not gender-wise, sex-wise it's a boy, blue. Girl, pink. It used to be swapped actually, but that has not stood the test of time, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna share a fun fact that, like, right around like baby booms and stuff, the hospitals got so many children, like newborns, that they, to make it easier for them, they split them up, blue for boys and pink for girls, and it kind of stuck.
Yeah. You got a hand, Drew?
I was gonna say, that's really only like in more developed countries though, because if you think of like, I mean, my family, we do the shoe boxes at Christmas time to go like to third world countries, and they don't care what color they get. You could have a boy get a hot pink truck, and they're gonna be so excited and could care less what the color is, but here it's like, a boy is not gonna want a baby doll like a girl would, like.
So there's an American-centric experience with
Yeah.
identities as well. Where we're living, it means something, because I guarantee if we go to another country, they don't have all these random surveys about race and ethnicity. Yeah.
And then like there's that whole thing like if people do like associate like pink with girls and blue with boys, like those shirts that guys have that like real men wear pink and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. Which is like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to reclaim this feminine thing. I'm going to acknowledge that it's still feminine, but I'm going to be all hipster and I'm going to wear it. Yeah. I mean, back when that was a big movement, hipster wasn't even really a term, but yes.
And then there's like the entire thing with the toys, the kind of that Target tried to, I don't know if they have, but they like tried to discontinue like separating the boys and the girls' toys.
Yeah.
And there's like a huge fight about that because girls are supposed to play with Barbies and guys are supposed to play with the Tonka Tough toys, which also really, I just
There was a BuzzFeed recently that was products for men that shouldn't even be men, like real men, like toilet paper. Like, it's tough for a tough man's body. Like, really things that are, or like deodorant that is for men.
They make like that like Dove for men.
Dove for men, yeah.
which is also cheaper.
Right. See, I'm unraveling some of these life's mysteries.
What's the tax?
The tampon tax?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about
Tampon tax, yes.
Like the pink tax is like such a thing
Uh-huh.
that, like, they're talking about tampon tax because they're trying to like take taxes off of tampons and pads, but like the pink tax
The
itself
luxury
is like a
tax.
thing because like girls like clothes are much more expensive
Deodorant.
than guys. Like jeans, which are like the same material, like are more expensive when they're girls, and like all kinds of like bathroom products are so much more expensive just because it says for women on it.
So, I mean, going back to these toys thing, I will throw out my own 2 cents.
Pants, boy shoes, boy socks.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, boy shoes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Growing up, all I wanted was an easy bake oven. Mainly because I love desserts, which I'm sure you've gotten by now. And I wanted to make my own cakes and eat them.
You didn't get the easy bake
I
oven?
never got an easy bake oven because it was for women. For girls.
I'll give you mine.
The easy bake oven and
I
I
have
From like
yours.
the 90s.
thing where you make the
And
I don't know if
that.
it works.
I think
You might have to change your
the
light
other
bulb.
side of that too is like the idea that not only is it not okay for you to want something that's traditionally of the other genders,
Yeah.
but that if you do want it, it automatically means something about the way that you identify your sexual orientation or your gender identity. And so it's like, first of all, it's not okay for you to want an easy bake oven, and second of all, if you do, it must mean you're gay. Like you have to be gay.
Right.
There's no other
So wait. So if you're doing something that's more feminine, which is really your gender expression, you're saying that it equates to our sexual orientation, even though these are on separate lines as evidenced by 2 different bullet points? What? Yeah.
And then I was also going to say, like directly going off of what Dr. Ray said, is that like that for men, like that is almost like that's an insult. It's like to say like you are gonna play with Barbie, like you're gay. Like that is like the masculine, like patriarchal culture. It's such a homophobic culture that like promotes like the worst thing that you can be called is like growing up as a young boy is gay, and it's really, I think, it's very terrible.
There's so many good comments. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, going to your Easy Bake Oven thing.
Going back to
There was
Easy
a couple
Bake.
years ago
Okay.
when they started making Easy Bake Oven for boys, in quotes, and like the boys' ingredients were like mud pie with like worms, and like it was all like gross, like green, vomity looking stuff. It all looked really nasty.
Oh my god, it's like the Nerf guns for girls now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like,
And
why
then
can't I have a
pink
normal
purple.
Nerf gun? I already have 7 at home, but I need a pink and purple one.
Yeah, so they
No,
made
I
it like
don't.
they made it like
Yeah.
dirty
Legos.
and like tough and
Oh,
boy-y
I was
for
Masculine.
boys. But we still
Yeah.
have
Pink cars.
pretty pink
With Legos when I
cupcakes
was a
to
kid.
count.
I made cars.
I opened up such a
Like
can of
Legos
worms and I
with
love it.
Legos.
All right.
But like back to like this whole like idea, like this has been like going on for a while. Like
Uh-huh.
I remember like Friends is like it's like an old show, like you know like the 90s.
It's not that old of a
Okay,
show.
okay, old dirt, okay? Like
Old
when
as
I
dirt?
was
What?
born, or not as old. No, I'm saying throwaway. Not as old. It's like from when I was born.
So you must have
Okay,
20
okay,
years
good.
ago.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Anyway,
Hole's already dug, so just keep going.
just keep digging.
Just cover yourself in the blanket.
Yeah, so like there was like that whole problem with like Ben, Ross's son Ben was playing with a doll, and he had 2 moms at the time, and like the whole like idea.
In the 90s was, whew. Yeah.
But like and that was like a whole big deal, and then like they always made fun of. Well, I know they did in like one episode. They always made fun of Ross because he had a pink shirt, and he loved his pink shirt, and then he always was like, it's salmon, it's not pink, and he was trying to like cover up the fact that he like liked the pink shirt.
And then just like going back to what she was saying about how like, oh, like if you play with a Barbie, like you must be gay, or like even some people I know like they'll like see a guy who has like they just have like a high voice, and like that doesn't necessarily like that doesn't mean you're gay or anything. And like my cousin, like totally like I had no idea. He came out to us like I think 2 years ago, and like I don't care, but it was just like he was drunk too, and he told me. So I was literally like, are you serious? Like, I mean, I don't care, but like, are you serious? 'Cause, like, I didn't know if he was just saying this. And like, he's that type of person. I think he's like 25 now. And he's always been like, he's very responsible, but like with the younger cousins and everything, he would always like just play around and like joke around, like not act like a child, but like you know, people can be childish. So like now it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes some things he'll do, like my whole family, like we'll joke with him, and like he's fine with it. We'll be like, oh well, like. So I would just say, because like he doesn't have a high voice. That was my point in getting to this.
Is that we make assumptions based on stereotypes of what we see in the media, of what we see as sort of being typical, and make assumptions based on that. And when someone doesn't fit in that box, we question that. Because it's all about boxes. It all goes back to boxes. All right, last point on this one,
I
maybe.
was just gonna say, I saw something on, I think it was Facebook like a week ago, of a little boy who for, I think it was Halloween, wanted to dress up as Elsa.
Yeah.
And the
Yes.
dad, instead of saying no to him, it like had a picture of him, the little boy in the Elsa like gown, and happy as could be, and instead of the father like saying no, you can't do that, completely embraced it and then dressed up as the sister. And like for me, that was like so hard. Like I mean, it touched me because I'm like, you know, I feel like things kind of are starting to shift a little bit, and that stereotype of a boy needs blue and green, and girls need pink and orange is like really not the same anymore. It's slowly, but
We'll work on. And I think I would also challenge that depending upon where you are.
that's true.
So I had this conversation 2 weeks ago in Oxford, Mississippi. Little different than near Philadelphia. Montana, a little different than Southern California, like LA area. So I think there's also context of our environment. So, you know, I came from a very small town in West Virginia. What does that mean? Versus I now live in Denver, Colorado, where everyone smokes pot, right?
38%.
38%, there we go. All right, last comment on this one.
Along with that, there was the little boy who grew out his hair. It's probably as long as Carl.
Oh, yeah.
He grew out his hair to donate, and like all the kids teased him because he had long hair, and he was a boy. And then he got his hair cut and like donated it, and now he has cancer. And I think that's so heartbreaking. Like this kid did so much to give to someone else and got made fun of for it, and now like he's hoping that someone will give to him, you know? Like that just breaks my heart.
This is that patriarchy that you were talking about, in effect, from before we are born. From the gender reveal parties. Sex reveal parties, thank you. From those parties to as soon as we are born, that is telling us what these boxes are. And it doesn't even take into consideration that it's not either or. Like you can like things that are maybe more feminine or more masculine. Like, sorry, I'm not gonna. Well, yeah, I'm gonna call that. You'd said that you all were boys up here because you did it.
Oh, yeah.
You did it.
I used to
up
like boys. Yeah, like we used
Yeah.
to like how guys would take their shirts off when they were hot. Well, I was
Oh, yeah.
skins too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My mom has pictures of me and my cousins like wrestling, like hardcore, beating each other up, and I had my shirt off too.
But
Following mud,
the-
like,
Picture of me rolling around in the mud with my brother.
yeah, no one
the
ever was
term
like,
that you
oh,
said-
they're gonna be gay, like.
The term that you said is that we're boys. It's just so funny that that's the term that you use when really all it is just a little more masculine, or we're exhibiting some masculine traits. Being masculine doesn't necessarily mean that you're a boy. Being a little more feminine doesn't necessarily mean that you're a girl. Or gay, because that's a whole separate identity. Or transgender, or not cisgender, or you are, like, those are all separate terms. They might have a little bit of interaction with one another, but they're all different at the same time. All right, I think we've got that. We got 2 identities left. Whew. Socioeconomic background, what do we have thoughts-wise on that? What that
Your
means?
Rolex watch.
Rolex? Oh, so wait,
Oh,
you're,
yeah.
you're saying that there are status symbols that we have that show whether or not we have money? Yeah, that could be a sign as well.
So it's like, really weren't that different. His watch gets into knockoff from, you know.
Do folks tend to show as high of a status as possible?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I know right now, not gonna lie, I judged everyone when they walked in the room. You all judged me when I walked in the room. It's natural, we do it. Just to see what we're up against. Like, I'm wearing an Apple Watch. Yeah, this was my tax return 2 years ago. Wearing a Fitbit. Yeah, that was Santa Claus. Like,
I didn't even realize you had both.
Oh.
I know.
I saw it.
yeah, you noticed right away.
Yeah, I noticed.
You know, I'm normally I sometimes I'll wear like a polo Ralph Lauren shirt, or I'll wear like a Banana Republic shirt or pants.
Are you right or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Oh man.
I do that, but I also shop at and get that from the discount bin at TJ Maxx.
Woo! Yes!
Right?
TJ Maxx Marshall Home
Right.
Goods.
Yeah.
Bomb.com.
Yep.
End of story. Place to go.
So even you don't know that whole story unless I tell you that. You just see the logo. And you also see how I tried to defend myself, like, oh, I'm wearing this, but I really don't have that much money. Because sometimes we want to relate with folks. So like, how do we act around others to show our socioeconomic status or our socioeconomic background? I saw hands, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the order that I like it, just not a fun drawing that I made with my...
I feel like the idea that Allie said, like, it could have been a knockoff, like, there shouldn't have to be such things as a knockoff. Like, that whole thing frustrates me, and I'm one of those people, like, I like Vans, I like Nike for health reasons, because my feet are weird as hell, and also because I like them. I like the way they look on my feet. I like what comes with them. I love seeing the little, well, now it's like all crapped up, but the Vans symbol on the back of my Vans. I like the way American Eagle jeans fit me, but I also like the little swoosh they have on the butt. Like, I realize that I'm one of those people, but like these jeans weren't bought from American Eagle, they were bought from Plato's Closet. Like those Vans were like $24 at a discount shoe store. Like I'm
My
not.
Nikes for $54 on Cyber Monday.
Yeah,
There you
real
go.
fun.
And they're beautiful.
Who was 2? You were 2?
Yeah, I was
Like,
too. Like I know people really are quick to judge homeless people, and if you think what they have, whatever is of most value to them, they are gonna wear the pride. So like if you see somebody going to the grocery store using food stamps and they have this big fur coat on, it's like, well, that might be the highest possession that they own, and they're really proud to still have it. So like you really kind of have to watch about that, like, because you don't know where it came from, and that literally might be all that they have.
Right. That's a great perspective that we often don't think about. We often think if we see someone with a fur coat at the grocery store using food stamps, then they're just game of the system.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know where they're coming from.
Really, as to relate to that point, which is the idea that since socioeconomic status is not just like how much money you make, but also the prestige that you hold in society, and the myth that of anyone with high prestige job, with an advanced degree, that well, you must have money, right? So you're holding out on people. What do you mean you can't afford to do X or Y or Z? What do you mean you can't buy a house? What do you need? Whatever.
I got a master's degree in education, so I'm working for a nonprofit. So,
right.
Doesn't mean anything. You don't know the specifics around that. Yeah.
What I was gonna say is kind of reflecting what you said before, back home, I have two groups of friends, and one group of friends I have to wear my legit stuff. I can't bring a bag that's not designer because they'll judge me, and then the other group of friends could honestly care less if I was wearing a brown paper bag or what. And it's really sad that I can't swap those. That with my one group of friends, I have to make sure I bring my bag that's way too expensive, and I feel like an idiot for buying. But if I brought a Forever 21 knockoff bag, they would make fun of me. That's sad that that's the society that we live in, when it really doesn't matter because everyone, it shouldn't matter what people wear.
Well, and I don't want also folks to feel bad if you do have a higher socioeconomic status and you have some of those items that maybe are sometimes seen as status symbols. I don't want that to be the case either, but it's interesting when you're sort of recognizing maybe the term we like to say, or the term that we do use is sometimes called code switching. Depending upon the group of people that we are with, we act or speak or exist with a different code. We sometimes see that, a lot when it comes to race. So if there are folks who maybe they are African and they are with a group of white folks, they tend to speak a lot differently and not maybe with their natural dialect than if they were with a group of other individuals. Or when it comes to religious beliefs, or when it comes to a group of gay individuals sitting with other gay individuals versus straight individuals. We tend to code switch is the term that we use in terms of this. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just off of that, for picking colleges, I was between Alvernia and Quinnipiac, which is a nice little $60,000 school in Connecticut. And obviously I came here because that was way too much money. And my best friend actually applied there because of me, and he ended up going there. And he is a snobby little rich bitch, and I make fun of him all the time. Sorry. But
careful of the term bitch and what the connotations that come with that around other identities.
That's just how I say it to his face, but just because it's him. And I make fun of him all the time. It might sound so mean, but he is my best friend, and I tell it to him because I care. But he spent $400 on a belt, $600 on shoes. It's a ridiculous amount of money that he could be putting to other places that would be so much more useful. And I just don't understand why he puts that money towards things that are luxuries for other people. So
maybe asking some of those questions.
Oh, he said because
motivation
he can.
interview.
Because Daddy buys it for him.
No.
All right.
So I love to shop.
Okay.
Really, it's bad. It's real bad. But I also work for a luxury purse company too. So I understand it's ridiculous how much people will spend on some of these things, and I will knowing myself, I'd probably save up my money to buy one of the purses.
Yeah.
I would save up $1,000 to buy this purse because I know my mom has some, and I know they last for a while, but that's me. But I hate that I'll go home to my friends and kind of what Chloe was saying, she's 2 separate friend groups. My friends back home will be oh, you have so much money, you can do that, but really it's I'm working hard for this, and I'm I set a goal, and it's not just I was given that, it's not I worked for something to get. I wasn't just here, you can take the credit card and go and buy your $20,000 purse or whatever. So.
Again, we don't know the stories and the histories of everyone, so just keeping that in mind. Like I said, I don't want you to say that just because you have some nice things doesn't mean that you're a bad person. That's not what I want this to come off as at all. And we're starting to go down a rabbit hole of socioeconomic background, but we'll just do these last 2 points and then wrap this up.
Yes,
But I also think like when it comes to socioeconomic backgrounds, like they can sort of be misleading. Like you can come from a high income family, but it doesn't mean you live a high income life. Like my mom works in local government, but it's nowhere near cushy. Like it's insanely stressful on her, and like the only reason I can come here is like because I'm a commuter, so that cuts tuition almost in half, and then I have a scholarship. And so like we still struggle like with finances on occasion, and like clearance items are my best friend. So like
Again, you just, you don't know that full story until you just make assumptions, which
Yeah.
people tend to do. Yeah. Last point on socioeconomic was over here, I think.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that, like, not every time, someone touched on it before, how, like, I think that, like, I don't know, personally, I don't think that, like, just because you have so much stuff, like how Alyssa called her friend, like, whatever, or, like, if you don't have anything that, like, oh, you're, like, a low life, or whatever the stereotype people call it, because, like, if you look at, I'm gonna, like, relate it to sports, like, there are so many D3 athletes that, like, make it into professional because they don't have enough money to go to a D1 school and get that type of, like, I guess, training that other kids do. So it's just kind of like, you could almost be on the same, like, skill level as someone, but, like, I guess depending on, like, where you come from, kind of, like, you either go to D1, you go to D2, D3, and, like,
And who are the folks that are tapped for those D1 schools, D2, D3 schools, and you know, what privileges are associated with
yeah, and, like, for me, like, I went to high school with some girl who played, like, I played soccer with her when I was, like, 3rd grade, and she made varsity in high school. I didn't make varsity. I ended up doing, like, walk-on freshman year. I mean, I didn't really play, but it was still, like, I never, like, thought about even, like, trying to play college, or soccer in college. Soccer in college. Wow. So, I don't know, it's just, like, different way to look at it.
Yeah, sure. The last one, our ability status. The points that I'd like to bring out here is ability status, I would say, is temporary. Folks tend to be maybe temporarily able-bodied. If you've seen me ski in Colorado, you can see why it's temporary. I often will take out a fence every now and again. There are some pictures of that. But then also when it comes to ability status, also remembering mental and cognitive abilities as well. So able-mindedness, or neurotypicality if we really want to get fancy. Able-mindedness, mind too. Population subgroups are other identities that aren't listed up here. I would say age is one of them. I would also say maybe political affiliation. Things that, there are some things that go, groups that we fall in. Yeah, skateboarders. I didn't come up with this.
Apparently there's year you were born is a thing now too.
Year you were born?
Like the millennials.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yep. I know they are.
We're gonna talk about insurance.
But yeah, insurance, you know, if you're not 25, like, car insurance
The day
is,
you turn 25, your car insurance goes down by like 36%.
Or like when you first get your license, if like you're a boy, it's higher automatically.
Yep.
Like,
wait, so you're saying that age and gender slash
Yeah, like
sex
when we
has an
start-
impact on one another?
yeah, so like you're
What?
a boy. Oh, you're being sarcastic.
Yes, I got it.
I was like, you didn't know about that? I was like, you should.
All right. Why? Are you making an assumption of me? You putting me in a box? Are you assuming that I'm a boy? Yeah, box. I've been there. Speaking of putting JM in boxes, before we go on, what we're going to do is one of my favorite activities, where you get to tell me what my identities are. Woo! You get to put me in some boxes. Using those social identities up there on the board, I want you to tell me
You're
which
Greek.
identities I
You're
hold.
Greek Orthodox.
Greek American, okay.
But you're also white, so I don't know how that works. But.
Well, I would say Greek American is the ethnicity that you just defined for me, and then white would be the race. Okay.
Orthodox would be your religion, isn't that a religion?
Orthodox, yep.
Or you cannot identify. I don't know. This is so hard.
All right, so I'm Orthodox, okay.
I mean, can we ask you your sexual orientation?
You are putting me in boxes. You're telling me what I have. I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
It's going to be
That's-
quiet.
I'm scared. I don't
To
know.
start with one that you think might be easier, like I bet you can guess what you think is sex.
Yeah, what's my sex?
You are a male.
You think I have a penis? All right. I'm cisgender or transgender? Cisgender. Okay. Why are you scared? Why are you scared to say sexual orientation?
Because I don't want to say something and offend you, or like not say something and
Sexual
offend you.
orientation where you like who you like.
So,
What's the name? It's not bisexual, it's a different name.
Isn't it? No, it's not.
And I think that's like,
Pan?
I was gonna say, I think that like a reason to be worried about like guessing someone's like sexual orientation or honestly like even someone's like gender identity is because I think that like the society portrays certain things as like more negative like in a way. So I think that like to say like I think you're like if I was to be like I think you're gay and then like you're straight, like I think that like someone would be like offended by that or be like, oh my gosh, am I putting out like those weird vibes? There's an episode of Friends about that where Chandler is like, oh my gosh, do people think I'm gay? And he's like freaking out about that.
Everyone loves Friends here. I love Friends too. I watch it every night.
Oh my god, I can't like
so,
I think there's that like I don't know if stigma is necessarily the right word, but I think it might be like the right word.
A question though. So you both kind of dropped the term offended. You thought that I might be offended or someone might be offended. I've been talking with you since 8:30 this morning. Have I given off the perception that I would be offended if you guessed an identity wrong, especially since this is the activity that I'm leading and I told you to do this in the first place?
I hope not.
Well, you're guessing what?
Pansexual.
Pansexual? Okay, someone give a definition of what pansexual might be?
You do not barricade yourself from any form of sexual pleasure.
Okay.
Sex is sex.
Sex is sex, no matter
Yeah.
who it is. Okay.
I just want to go back to like what Carolyn was saying and everything.
Yeah.
And like another thing, like why like someone would get offended by like us like saying it if like they were gay and they weren't comfortable with like saying it yet because it's like a big deal to like tell people you are, you know. And also with the whole thing about Chandler and Friends was the
Oh
reason
my
behind
goodness.
it. I read an article. The reason behind it was because that they all thought that the first time they met Matthew Perry, I think that's who that is.
Yeah.
All the like cast like Jennifer Aniston and like all those people, they thought that like he actually was like gay, like their first like judgment of him when they first met, like him as a person, not his character. So they like worked it into like the character's idea or the character's.
One is dad's also drag queen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also that historical, and his dad is gay, so there's that historical upbringing for Chandler and Matthew Perry. But again, so the entire cast of Friends thought that Matthew Perry was gay, put him in a box, made this decision, didn't talk to him about it. What'd you say?
You did put him in a box.
Yeah.
He said that.
I know.
Oh,
but
yes.
maybe, like, you're
They
talking
did.
about
He
the
put
box.
himself in the box to make up his friendship with Joey because he was with his girlfriend. Yes, I know the whole story. But they put him in this box and they made this up without even asking him. Okay.
But that's what you're asking us to do for you.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
You don't like it? Okay.
Yeah, it also makes me uncomfortable because my parents always taught me like not to assume. So
Don't judge a book by its
my boyfriend's roommate comes off with all of these stereotypical gay male qualities. And I know from the sounds coming from his room that he is not a gay male. So we'll just leave it at that. And from his past
There you say
experience,
consent.
and from what he always does, he's a good guy. But you know, when I first met him, I was like, "Is he gay?" And my boyfriend was like, "No. Like, why would you say that?" And I was like, "Well, he just, you know, he cares a lot about his appearance." And he talks with that certain, like, Abby knows him, Abby's, you know, met him before.
He does give off that vibe.
Gives off that vibe. So do you ever use the terminology? Well, he just doesn't know it yet. People do use that term.
Yeah.
People will say that. Oh, they just don't.
They used to say
Eventually, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got pansexuals. Anyone want to disagree with that or agree with that?
Wait, can you explain it again? Pansexual is like it's like just that, like you don't identify, like.
No,
Yeah.
pansexual is like sex is sex, and there are many ways of experiencing pleasure through sex. So like, you know, you can find just as much sex with a man as you could with a woman, and so like, why barricade yourself to any one specific type of sexual pleasure? Okay, so that's.
Keeping that down? All right. There's some up there. Ability status.
Well, you
So temporarily able-bodied,
Yeah.
okay?
Are we just talking about physical abilities? Or
No,
no, you were
also
talking
throw some
about-
cognitive abilities in there too.
You have your master's degree. You have a
Sorry, what?
master's degree in
So my education could also be one of those population subgroups, yeah?
Well, like, or you know, if you have like
We could-
autoimmune disease or something like that.
Sorry, yeah, you don't know if I have an autoimmune disease?
I said I think you have really good vision,
Good vision, okay.
perhaps.
That would be a ability, okay.
I was gonna say that you seem like a very caring person, because like
Okay.
you were an RA, like you were the head person, and like now you're doing this stuff.
Yeah,
So,
so,
like,
so the caring piece.
Believe me.
All right, those would be some of more of those personal identities, yeah.
You have the ability to grow facial hair.
Facial hair, all right, so beard.
Excellent public speaking.
Public speaking, that I think would definitely go up on some of the other ones. What about other schizophrenia? The able-minded, schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, anxiety, some of those other
I
mental
think you
illness.
OCD.
OCD.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. All right.
A little bit of OCD.
Socioeconomic
I
background.
kind of hate this activity.
A little bit higher than this.
Okay.
I kind of hate this.
So upper mid. Okay.
That'd be super uncomfortable.
We said orthodox religious beliefs.
I kind of think it would be like.
Christianity.
It's
Yeah.
like not Roman Catholic, but it's like one of the Roman Catholics.
I feel like
yeah.
Yeah.
It has very similar beliefs, but there's a lot of differences.
Are you listening? I don't know.
I know. I'm trying to gauge what you're trying to say.
I feel like you're not Greek Orthodox. I feel like you were raised Greek Orthodox, but now you're like, I don't know. Like I feel like
Now I don't know.
you're like
Okay.
agnostic. Yeah. That's
Raised Orthodox.
Raised Orthodox, IDK. What else? Did we get everything?
I think you're a skateboarder.
Skateboarder. I can give you that away now.
I think you played baseball in high school.
He athlete? We'll say athlete.
Like specifically baseball.
Just baseball. Okay.
No, you see like
There
soccer.
was a lot. I was gonna say wrestling.
Yeah, me too.
You're giving me a hell of a lot of credit. That's all I'm going to say.
Like water golf.
Did you go jazz?
Golf. Sorry, what?
I was guessing the sports you possibly did.
Curling,
Water.
Age. Someone want to do age?
26.
26. All right.
So it's fun.
No wait, hold on. Can I think about this for a minute? Okay.
Totally 30.
I think actually you might be like 25.
Okay.
I'm like trying to do math. I'm like,
For 6 years.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm gonna have a master's. I'm gonna do 22.
25, 26 slash
You did
30.
the art.
Okay.
I think you're like
25 or 2 years.
I think
Okay.
it's
Five
like that.
years, 25.
No, you're definitely
I'm gonna be
26.
21 when I graduate.
Okay.
Even if that was the case, then
So.
I would still be 24.
All right. We'll get back to that.
You're not gonna tell us?
We're going to go back to it.
No.
Yeah.
We're gonna go back
No,
to
we
it.
have to finish this module.
Wait,
You will. Patience is a virtue. But
I feel like I'm reevaluating some of this.
you didn't like this. Many people said that they don't like this activity.
I don't.
Why don't you like this activity?
Because I feel like I'm judging you. Like I feel like
Okay.
I'm looking at you and I'm taking you at face value and I'm like, I'm gonna make all these decisions about your life for you and and then off of that too, because I think like when you make these decisions and you make all these other stereotypes and all these other assumptions about people, like just looking at you and just looking at what you're wearing and my experience with you for the past 6 hours.
It makes us feel like really shallow people.
Makes you feel like shallow.
We're supposed to be the deep group of
You're the
Stereotyping.
stereotyping.
I don't think I like it because you're like telling me to like say these things out loud, but like, let's be real, I probably, and everyone in this room has probably at some point in their lives have done this to someone while talking to other people, not saying it to their face, but I don't like it because you're right in front of me.
If I went out of the room and said, hey, put my social identities up here, I won't know who did it, that might have been different. I know that people hate this activity. I love the fact that people hate this activity because then we get to talk about it. Yeah,
I totally forgot what I was
awesome.
Also not married.
Not married, single and ready to mingle. All right.
I agree.
Well, I never said you could.
Maybe not ready to mingle or not.
Or
Okay.
maybe not married.
Not
I
married.
just said you weren't married.
Okay.
Well, he just gave it up. He gave it up to single.
Yeah.
No, but single is not married when you check it on the box.
That's true.
Boom.
No, oh, I don't know what you're saying.
I
I feel like we're telling you who you're supposed to be. And
Based off of the
like,
way you've given us.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's like, that's unfair
Yeah,
because
because
only
this is
you, only you can determine who you wanna be and like, you do you.
You do
We're
you.
doing you,
Not
huh?
only
Like,
that, we're assessing you in like your professional like lifestyle. Like the person I am inside the classroom is totally not the person I am sitting on this couch right now. So we're judging you right now. Just
Go back to that
based
code
on your-
switching piece again of
Yeah,
like
your
who's the
professionalism.
person I
Well,
portray
you know, you
here.
could go home and you could be like, man, I hate wearing button-up shirts and these watches get on my nerves. They hurt my wrist.
You know, do a line of coke and just all of that. As soon as I go.
Or like not even that, but we're supposed to be a non-judgmental group. I mean, like and you're making us judge.
To what you're teaching.
This is contradictory to what I'm teaching you.
Yeah, that's how we learn.
So why am I having you do this?
It's a learning, growing type of thing.
It's a learning experience, it's a growth experience, okay?
I think that it teaches us like about the way that we make these judgments about people, like looking at you and like how just from looking at you, like we assume all these things about you. And I think that teaches us about how when we look at others, all the like little assumptions and things like that we make without even realizing it or understanding exactly how that goes.
And like how wrong we can be.
And how wrong you can be, and we'll get to that. Or how right you are, or how right you are.
That's why I want to go the opposite of everything on this thing.
You want to be
Because I feel
opposites.
I feel like you're just gonna be like, well, you were all wrong. Like,
Am I
There's some
right?
right things up
Yeah.
there. There are some right things up there. There's some wrong things up there.
I like this activity.
You like the activity.
I don't, but then like reflecting, like I don't like right now, I'm
Yeah.
like that, but like reflecting on it, I'm like, this is good, like this is an eye opener.
Yeah.
Like this is.
we should assess everybody.
We should.
That's a vulnerability piece, which I would put the onus on the group to think about before they start doing that.
Yeah, I want you guys to judge me.
But
I'm curious.
again, I think that some things is yes, we judge people. I walked in here and I judged you all in a good way. But like we make assumptions based on what we see and who's in the room. I'll say I did this 2 weeks ago whenever I was in Mississippi. I judged the room. Student came out and I identified as gender nonconforming. They don't align with the gender. They use gender neutral pronouns. I had assumed that they were a female. That was an assumption that I'd made. It's natural. It's about being cognitive of the judgments that we're making about others and seeing how we could be wrong or how we may be wrong. Yes?
I think it's unsettling too because, I mean, if we go back to kind of our evolutionary history, like we had to make judgments very quickly in order to, you know, like you see this big furry brown thing that like chases you down and tries to kill you, like it would probably be a good idea if you like, I put all of the other big furry brown things that chase you in the same box and not interact with them. Like that would just be a good idea, like generally, right? So it unsettles us when we're wrong because it like almost gets to the core of like, oh my god, I didn't like categorize correctly, if that makes sense. And it creates a sense of like of anxiety because you messed up and like that kind of almost goes back to survival.
Yeah. Actually, always back to survival. So before we get to this, you put me in boxes, or a box, or a flip chart rectangle thing. Now you get to put yourself in some boxes, or in some bubbles. As you see in your workbook on whatever page you all are at,
There's two of them.
there are the first set of bubbles. See, I told you how we go so off topic here. We're on slide 2 of this, you know, the intro slide, the type of slide. So there are 2. So the first set of bubbles there for you to identify yourself. Using these social identities. Take a few minutes, put yourself in some bubbles. Would probably part of this population subgroup, but definitely focus on some of those other, the big 8 that I talked about. More than what the identities are. Here are 8 of them that you can potentially pick and choose from. There should be 9 bubbles plus 1 for your name, and there should be 8 up here, so that gives you 1 extra. As folks are wrapping up, what I want you to talk about at your table is, or group, is what identities were hard for you to write or define, and which of the identities were easier for you to define, and how this process was for you. Were there specific identities that were difficult to write down versus easier? And then what was the overall process like?
We're talking about that new story.
For folks, how was this activity? Interesting, good conversation.
It was good. It's just-
Why the meh feeling?
Like, I mean, some of it was easy. Like, yes, I'm white. I'm a female. Like, so some of it was easy. But like, we were talking that for me, like where I stand right now, being a college student, like the socioeconomic background was kind of hard.
Yeah.
Because like, yes, I have my parents who support me very much. But it's like all of my loans have been taken out of my name. It's been my money earned to buy my textbooks and supplies. Like, so yes, I'm living under their roof, but if I didn't have that, I don't know where I would be. So like, it's hard to distinguish where do I actually fall, because if I'm going off of what I have, I think I would probably be in the lower class, but my parents are middle class, so like, it's kind of like
Where do you
I
fit
really
in?
fall.
And you had said interesting up here. Why'd you say interesting?
I have to actually think about myself, and I'm a very lost human being most of the time, so
Yeah,
that was interesting.
you had to think about it. Because when's the last time you sat with a list of identities and decided to think what you were?
Never.
Who does this on a weekly basis? Anyone? No. Probably not. We probably also don't sit in a group of about 15 of us and talk about our identities and how they interact with one another often. Maybe you do in some of your women and gender studies classes.
I mean, this is just something, like, this is an activity I've done before, but I think it's an important activity. And I think even the idea that, like, it's not something that you do on a regular basis, I think that's almost, in some ways, a form of privilege, too.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I do this probably, this about every week or so, every other week. So I'm super confident. I like doing it. But even though I do it often, I still learn more about myself. I learn more about what I portray to others and what people think about me. And I become a better facilitator. So even if you do an activity like this more often than not, I still think there are some great takeaways from there. What else? Other thoughts, other reactions? Yeah.
With like mine, I agree with Cindy that being like the most difficult part was like the social economic background, because like I didn't know to identify myself with my parents or with myself, because like it's an adult, but like with us, it actually brought out like a really good conversation between like our religious beliefs, because all 4 of us grew up Catholic, and we were talking about, and I like personally me, like where I grew up when I was younger, everybody around you was Catholic. Like your neighbor, you knew that they were Catholic and they were Irish. You knew, like everybody knew that. And there were only like Catholic, like Roman Catholic churches. I couldn't think of a word around this. And then I moved to where I live now, and it was like everybody has like a different religion, and it was so strange for me to like know that like I remember one day I was in like 4th or 5th grade, and I went to church with one of my friends, and it was different, and I was like, oh, this is so different than the one I go to.
So the reason why I asked you what was easy or what was difficult to write, there's a term that we sometimes use called identity salience. Anyone heard of salience before in terms of identity? See a head nod, anyone talk about what salience is? So I don't have to give any definitions in this
I
model.
think my understanding of it is that there are certain identities that are, well, it has to do with like how central they are to you, like how much you identify with that. So there may be one identity that like you feel is like the very center core of who you are as a person, and there may be other identities that like you attribute to yourself or you identify with, but they're not like pivotal to who you are as a person. You don't think about those identities very frequently. They're just like yeah whatever. Like I like to read whatever. I like to do that. But it's not like if someone said who are you as a person, it's not like I would be like I am a reader. Like I would say something else about myself. I might say what my sex is, or I might say what my ethnicity is, or I might say something like that. That's something that's like very central to who you feel you are.
Yeah. Love. Yes. Did you want to?
I was just going to say that I think that's something we talked about. Like,
Okay.
Our group, like someone else was talking about it, but like I'll talk about my experience with someone else's. That like for able-bodied, like that's something I feel like that's always like one that like I think is like weird to like identify as or not, because I think that because I had brain surgery or whatever like in high school, but like when I talk about it, I'm like, oh, or whatever, because like to me it's not something that I feel is like central to who I am, but like looking at it, like technically I have a disability, I guess, but like it's never something that like I would identify as. Like on my thing, like I would write able-bodied, but it's like weird to think that like technically my identity is something other than like what I think of, you know?
And when I think about salience, I think about identities that are present for us in that moment. And salience can change depending upon where you're at in your life, where you're at physically. These are those identities that are very present for you and that you really start to think about. I know I've said this 2 weeks ago. I was in Mississippi. I was at Ole Miss. It was a joint training with Ole Miss and an HBCU, or historically black college university. I was there. The majority of the students there, I believe that from our conversation around this, only 2 students out of about 30 identified as white. I recognize, and my identity, or what appears to be my identity as a white man, standing in front of a room with majority female women of color, became very present for me and very salient for me at that point. Recognizing some of those privileges that I have. And what happens when I stand in front of a room of historically, and hearing some of the stories of growing up in the Mississippi Delta, as an African American woman, hearing those stories impacted me and really made me start to think about this identity. Versus there are other times when, on a daily basis, maybe I don't think about my race as much, or I don't think of my gender as much. I made an assumption. I made an assumption I'm the only man in this room. That might not be the case, but that's the assumption that I've made. And am I mansplaining? Sorry.
I'm sorry, mansplaining just makes me real upset.
True.
The fact of it, or talking
No, like
about?
mansplaining, like the fact of it.
Okay. Yeah, someone wanted to define mansplaining.
Explain it. Mansplaining is like when a man tries to like explain like a women's issue, but he does it from like a man's perspective, so it doesn't like work well. Like, can I give like a quick example? I promise I'll be quick.
Sure.
So like in one of my like classes, right, I had a male professor, and he was like trying to tell like a story about how like his wife, who owns like a dental practice, like she had 2 clients like leave the practice because they were like, oh no, like I don't want like a woman who owns a practice. And he was like, this woman thing has really been coming up a lot lately. And I was like, I'm literally in class, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, we need to talk more about this. And so he like was like trying to explain like what women discrimination was, like in a class completely full of women. Like, so he was just explaining like to us like what it is for like a woman to be discriminated against in the workplace. And I was like, as a woman, I agree with that. But like it wasn't something that he could provide a perspective on as a man. Like,
Yep.
that kind of thing.
So I recognize when I stand in front of a room of what I assume is mostly women, or all women, maybe not, but like trying to be very careful of not wanting to take away the voice of someone else. And making sure, and I know that I've taken away your voice a few times. And that has not been intentional. But there still could be some historical lingerings of privileges why I still step up and say things. Because that's how I was raised and born. And so now I know it, but it's just about recognizing it and trying to correct it. And no one's perfect. Remember, I'm at 98%. This is that 2% where I'm still working on to not mansplain anymore.
I think it's also a tendency, we all have a tendency to, because we do want to we want to feel like, oh, but I don't want you to feel that way. I don't want you to feel marginalized. I don't want you to feel less than. I don't want you to feel whatever. So we dismiss and we say oh, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Like you're just as good. And yeah, that whole thing of what? Invalidating someone.
Invalidating those feelings. It kind of goes back to, Module 3, but then also the parts where we were talking about, I don't see color. I don't see gender. We're all the, everyone think of Hedwig and the Angry Inch, the origin of love, or, we're all just one being at one point in time. Something to think about. I like this activity because it starts to talk about identity salience. But some people don't like it. Anyone not like the activity? You can be vulnerable. Yeah, why didn't you like the activity? You don't have to answer me.
I don't like talking about myself.
You don't like talking about yourself? There's oftentimes, what I told you to do is come up with these identities and put them in a circle. Just words. And words don't tell the full story. That tends to be the feedback that I get. I want to say so much more, and I can't do that when you make me fill out a bubble. And that's the truth. And so finally we go to this. Tell you how well you did. So you did pretty well. You know, I'll give you a B+, A-.
Wow.
That's very subjective. I have no grading scale that came up with that on, but yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. Let's start with some of these easy ones. So athletes in high school, no baseball.
What?
You were super confident about baseball. I know, right?
I
I was not a swimmer.
I was like,
I did not wrestle.
Damn. Soccer.
Soccer. So it was my first job was actually reffing youth soccer when I was 13. Grew up. My dad was my soccer coach. Did it freshman year of high school. Started in letters varsity. Quit. So it was kind of like a job for me, and I wanted to do more volunteer work so that would look better on college applications.
You're such a good person. We got that caring thing, right?
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to answer whether or not I'm caring, but you say I am, so I'll do it. So I really wanted to beef up my resume, and playing soccer was kind of like a full-time job, and wasn't the best use of my time. So that's not fair. I do still have my varsity letter because a lot of people don't believe me when I say that.
Yeah.
Do have contacts, so I'm sorry. Can't tell. What else? Temporarily able-bodied. I actually grew up with exercise-induced asthma, which is why losing the freshman 35 was pretty hard, and also why I didn't like playing soccer because I always had to take an inhaler. So I would say that has been an issue, but not necessarily as debilitating. Cisgender, yes. Man, yes. Born with male genitalia, identify as a man. Like both masculine and feminine things, that doesn't matter to me. Greek American, I gave that away. I'm also, so I'm half Greek and half Irish. I got the crappy part of both ends of that spectrum. Got the pale skin, the Greek hair, and the Greek body type. I'm like, can't I have like really lanky olive tone skin with no hair? No? Okay. I digress. White, yes, because of that. We'll get there, we'll get there. Single, yeah, unfortunately. So not married is correct. Single, ready to mingle, whatever.
Ready to mingle, everybody.
You travel too much.
I travel too much. I can't even keep a bamboo plant alive. I had one. I actually had Ryan's bamboo plant that I've killed. So what's choice?
You only have to water those like twice a week.
Yeah, there's times when I'm on the road for 14 days straight.
Don't want that worry.
Just bouncing around.
I have two like you can have one.
So let's see some of these other ones. Oh, educated. Yes, I did tell you that I had master's degree.
What is that one? Upper what?
Upper middle class. So, grew up, I like to say that I'm Appalachian American, having grown up in small town West Virginia. Grew up in small town West Virginia, gay. Knew that I was gay around 10. Part of the reason why I wanted to get out of West Virginia as soon as I could. No offense to the state, but wanted to be around an area that was a little more accepting, so I went to Washington, D.C. Born and raised Catholic, actually. So dad was Dad is Greek Orthodox. Spent a lot of time with my Greek Orthodox grandparents, but was confirmed, raised, baptized. Everything else was Catholic, though I did spend a lot of time in the Greek church. I'll actually say that the Greek American identity is more salient for me, more present for me than the Irish American identity. Actually taking like Greek language classes and love the food, clearly. I really like foodie should be one of these population subgroups up here for me. Grew up Greek American, grew up Catholic, went to a Catholic undergraduate institution, gay. But a very great one, which really let me sort of explore this identity. Georgetown's great, first Jesuit institution. Jesuits are very, very progressive, very involved in sort of that care of the whole person, cura personalis, LGBT prayer groups, everything. Led by priests, by Jesuits. Decided that I was going to come out to my family over Thanksgiving, my first year. I like to call that the turkey drop. That's what I refer to it as whenever I came out over Thanksgiving. Because it did not go well. To the point where parents are like, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Give me a lot of demands. And said, if you don't follow this, we're paying for college. Right now, if you don't follow these, we're not going to pay you. So I listened, and I listened for about 2 years, and finally, junior year, I was like, fed up with it. No. I'm going to do it. So they cut me out. It was actually probably one of the best decisions that we've made. Because if they wanted to have a relationship with me, they had to. It was in their court. They had nothing to hold against me, hold over me. So, it's made our relationship great now. Like, I got stuck in Pittsburgh after a training a few weeks ago and was there for an extra 3 days. And like I said, it's my mom's birthday tomorrow and need to call her. And we're in a great place now. But, after coming out, that actually led to some other mental health issues, depression, anxiety being the main one, so not OCD. It's not that I've been tested for, so I don't know there. But depression, anxiety, that I still see a counselor for today, and that's fine because mental health is so stigmatized in this country. It doesn't bother me. So, if you were to just look at this, and see gay, what assumption? Or just to see, I essentially went from lower middle class to really lower class in a matter of overnight. If you were to see that on paper, what assumptions would you make? How is my experience as a gay man from West Virginia, raised Catholic? Now I would say I'm more spiritual than, anything. All of these identities work together to make me who I am. That's what's called intersection of identities. Our identities don't exist in a silo. You might have an assumption of what it means to be gay, but if you don't know this whole story, you can't really know the person. And that's why I know that this was a crappy activity for folks. And why putting yourself in boxes was kind of a crappy activity. Because I asked you to take all of these identities and just pick and choose and put them in separate boxes that don't interact with one another. And that's not how your identities work. Knowing how all of this works together makes a person who they are. So when you are peer educators and when you're working with someone, really meet the person where they're at. I know we've said that, but really know where they're coming from and what their experience is. Because if I just gave you a list of my identities and said this is who he is, you make assumptions, but you wouldn't really know me. Hopefully after, 8 or 9 hours, now you kind of do know me and what makes me me. How my identities work together. Oh yeah, and age.
Did you really forget, or did you just like that? Oh, more. I was like, he is not 40-something.
What?
24.
Great for 40.
Yeah, I look great for 40. 24.
Birthday, when's birthday?
June 10th.
June 1. Oh, mine's June 22nd.
Oh my gosh, happy almost birthday!
Yeah! I can finally get cheap car insurance. So so 24. And some people, I know, said more on this higher end. But hey.
25 is pretty much right if your birthday's
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
pretty much right.
But there were some on this higher end. Because all of this influences how I act and how I carry myself. And how I live in this world. So I want you to remember sort of that your identities don't exist in a silo. They all intersect with one another. And it's this whole story that makes you who you are. Not just what you put down and write in a bubble. So 3 slides later, we're done with Module 6. Let's take 5 minutes, and we will do Module 7. All right? Or actually, can we not? Yeah, we should do 5 minutes. We start off with an activity which is like a 20-minute break. Can I jump right into it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Sorry, I did not mean to do that. So, right? Sorry, we will get to a time to use the restroom. I'll actually add more time to the activity so that we can use the restroom and stretch and all that stuff.
No, I'm gonna be bad. It's
What?
like I can't focus anymore.
You can't?
No.
No. So how can we make this,
Let's go.
just leave, or just like keep on going?
Keep going.
So we talk about